Are you feeling trapped in a cycle of addiction, unable to break free, no matter how hard you try? Have you ever wondered if there's a philosophy that can help you overcome any addiction and live a life of virtue and self-control? Well, you're in the right place. In this video, we'll explore the ancient philosophy of Stoicism and how its teachings can empower you to conquer any addiction and find true inner peace. So, if you're ready to take control of your life and say goodbye to addiction once and for all, let's dive in. Step 1. Acknowledge and accept. Stoic philosophy says that recognizing and accepting addiction is one of the most important steps toward healing. Stoicism stresses how important it is to see and accept truth, no matter how bad or uncomfortable it is. Marcus Aurelius said, "The first rule is to keep an untroubled spirit." This idea is summed up in that quote. The second is to face things as they really are. Addiction is a part of your life, and you need to be aware of how it affects you and the people around you in order to acknowledge and accept it. To do this, you have to accept that your addiction is hurting you and that you no longer have control over your actions. It's about telling yourself the truth, no matter how painful or hard it is. Not only do recognition and acceptance help you see the problem, they also help you see that change is possible. Stoicism teaches us that we can change how we react to things that happen to us, but not the things themselves. In other words, you may not have chosen to become hooked, but you can still choose to get help and get better. Acceptance and recognition are not one-time events. They happen over and over again. Addiction is a complicated illness that can change over time. You need to be able to understand and accept it as it is. To do this, you need to regularly think about yourself and be honest with yourself, which are both important parts of Stoic practice. It's important to remember that blaming or shaming oneself for being addicted is not the same thing. Stoicism teaches people to understand and care about themselves. Understanding that your problem is a part of you, but not who you are, is important. Because you are a person, you can change and grow. It can be helpful to recognize and accept addiction. It can make you feel better because you're no longer trying to hide the truth or live in denial. Also, it might push you to get help and make changes in your life. Another well-known Stoic teacher, Seneca, said, "Every night we should ask ourselves, what weakness have I mastered today? What feelings were at odds? What temptation did you resist? What virtue did you get?" Realizing and understanding that you have an addiction is a very important first step in getting better. It means being aware that addiction is a problem in your life, knowing how it affects you, and believing that you can change. Self-reflection, honesty, and kindness toward oneself are needed. Even though it might be hard, it is an important step toward beating addiction and having a full life. The Stoics teach us that the first step to getting better is to recognize and accept truth. Step 2. Seek support. Getting help is a very important part of beating addiction. It shows how strong you are and how much you want to get better. Remember that you don't have to fight this war by yourself. Stoicism, which focuses on society and wisdom, can teach us a lot about how important it is to ask for help. We learn from Stoicism that we are social beings and that our connections with other people are important to us. Seneca, a Stoic thinker, said, "No man is an island all by himself. Every man is a piece of the continent." This feeling is especially important when it comes to recovering from addiction. This includes doctors, therapists, and counselors who are trained to help addiction. They can give you the tools and advice you need to deal with your problem and get through the recovery process. Stoicism says to get advice from people who are good at what they do, and people who work in drug recovery definitely fit this description. Support groups like Narcotics Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous give people who are dealing with addiction a safe place to talk about their problems and get help from each other. The Stoic idea of society and helping each other out is shown by these groups. They give you a sense of understanding and connection, which can be very helpful while you're recovering. Support from people you care about can be very helpful as you get better. They can offer mental support, and practical help. To make sure that their help is helpful and not enabling, It's important to be open about what you need and set limits. Today, in this digital world, internet communities can also help and support people. These sites let you meet with people who are going through the same things you are, no matter where they are in the world. They can give you a sense of community and understanding, which can be very helpful as you heal. It is not a sign of weakness to ask for help. It is a sign of power. That you are ready to do what it takes to beat your problem shows that you are serious about doing it. Epictetus said, "We have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak." Listening to others, learning from their stories, and asking for their advice can really help you on your way to healing. It is important to remember that even though other people can help and support you, you are ultimately responsible for your own healing. Stoicism tells us to be responsible for our lives and what we do. This means taking an active role in your healing, making the changes you need to, and getting help when you need it. Getting help is an important part of beating addiction. Having a support system, like pros, support groups, friends, or even online communities, can give you the hope, direction, and understanding you need to get through the recovery process. Don't forget that you are not alone on this trip. Reach out and connect. Step 3. Identify triggers. One important step in getting over an addiction is figuring out what sets it off. Emotions, ideas, and physical sensations can be triggers, or they can come from the outside. People, places, situations. Also, each person's triggers can be different, so it's important to know what yours are. Stoicism, which stresses being self-aware and knowing our own feelings and thoughts, can help us figure out what sets off our triggers. Being fully present and interested in the present moment is what mindfulness is all about. It means being aware of your feelings and thoughts without judging them. You can become more aware of the things that make you act in an addictive way by practicing awareness. You may find that you have a strong desire to do something addictive when you're upset or after hanging out with certain people. Keeping a trigger journal can help you find trends and triggers that happen often. Write down what happened before you have a desire or do something addictive every time. Write down specifics like where you were, who you were with, how you felt, and what you were thinking. You might start to see trends form over time. You can also find causes by thinking about things that happened in the past. Think about the times you did something that was addicting. What were the events that led up to it? Did any of them have anything in common? Stoicism stresses how important it is to use our minds to control our feelings and actions. By looking at your addictive behavior with a clear head, you can figure out what sets it off and come up with ways to deal with it. For example, if you find that worry is a big trigger, you might decide to learn how to deal with it by doing things like deep breathing or meditation. If you can't figure out what sets off your reactions, you might want to get help from a professional. Therapists and counselors are trained to help people understand how their feelings, thoughts, and actions affect other people. They can give you useful information and suggestions that will help you find and deal with your triggers. Finding causes doesn't mean you have to stay away from them all the time. That's not always possible, and trying to do it can make you feel more stressed and anxious. It's about getting to know them and coming up with ways to deal with them. Another well-known Stoic teacher, Seneca, said, "Every night we should ask ourselves, what weakness have I mastered today? What feelings were at odds? What temptation did you resist? What virtue did you get?" Finding out what sets off your addiction is a big step toward getting control of it. From being a passive victim of your triggers, you are now taking an active role in your healing. You are using your mind to figure out what is causing your problem and come up with ways to beat it. One important step in getting over an addiction is figuring out what sets it off. Being self-aware, reflecting, and being ready to face uncomfortable facts are all necessary. Stoicism, on the other hand, can help you build the skills and attitude you need to recognize your triggers and deal with them in a healthy way. So begin the process of getting better today. Thoughts from Epictetus. No great thing is created suddenly. You can beat your problem if you keep at it, even if it takes time, work, and patience. Step 4. Set realistic goals. A very important part of beating addiction is making goals that are attainable. It gives you a plan for getting better, which keeps you engaged and on track. It's important to make sure that these goals are reasonable and attainable, since having goals that you can't reach can make you frustrated and cause you to relapse. The idea of prohairesis, or the freedom to choose, is very important. Epictetus, a Stoic philosopher, said that as much as we can't always change what happens around us, we can always change how we react to it. This idea is especially useful when setting goals for recovering from addiction. Stoicism tells us to pay attention to the things we can change, like how we act and respond. Don't make a goal like, "I will never use drugs again." Instead, focus on the process. "I will go to my support group meetings every week," or "I will practice mindfulness every day to control my cravings." You can reach these process-oriented goals, which will help you build a strong base for healing. It takes a long time to get better, so start with small goals that you can actually reach. This will help you feel better about yourself and keep you going. If you want to stop smoking for good, start by cutting down on the number of cigarettes you smoke every day. Seneca, a Stoic thinker, said, "The poor person is not the one who doesn't have enough, but the one who wants more." If you start small, you'll be less likely to feel overwhelmed and more likely to stick with your healing. A vague goal like, "I want to be healthier," is hard to track and can make things unclear. Be very clear about what you want to do. "I will walk for 30 minutes every day," or maybe "I will eat 5 servings of fruits and vegetables daily." Setting clear goals makes it easy to see how you're doing and gives you a sense of direction. Because life is uncertain, it's important to be able to change your goals as needed. If you can't reach your goal because of something out of your control, don't see it as a loss. You should change your goal and keep going. Marcus Aurelius, a Stoic ruler, said, "What stops you from acting moves you toward action. What gets in the way turns into the way." It's important to enjoy your wins along the way because recovery is a hard road. Acknowledging your successes, whether they are big steps in your recovery or just getting through a tough day, can motivate you and make you more committed to your recovery. An important part of beating addiction is making goals that are attainable. You can have a good recovery journey if you focus on the process. Start small, be specific, be open to change, and celebrate your wins. Always keep in mind what Epictetus said: "No great thing is created suddenly. It takes time, patience, and persistence to get better." Step 5. Make lifestyle changes. Changing how you live is a very important part of getting over an addiction. It means getting rid of bad habits and starting new, better ones. Getting through this process can be hard because it takes a lot of self-discipline and dedication. People can make these changes more easily if they use the ideas and methods of Stoicism. Stoicism stresses how important it is to live in harmony with nature. This means living a life that is in line with our natural wants and needs instead of letting outside things, like societal standards or material things, control our actions. When it comes to addiction, this means changing your habits to ones that are good for your physical, mental, and emotional health, and help you stop doing the things that make you addicted. Eating healthier is one of the best things you can do to improve your life. Your bodily health can suffer a lot from addiction. A healthy diet can help your body and mind recover. Socrates tells us to think of food as fuel for our bodies, not as something that makes us feel good or gives us joy. In order to improve your health and well-being and lower your urges for drugs, you should focus on feeding your body healthy, nutrient-dense foods. Getting daily exercise is another important change in lifestyle. People who are recovering from something can get a lot of benefits from exercise, such as less stress, better happiness, and better sleep. Stoicism says that exercise is a good way to build discipline, resilience, and self-control, all of which are important for getting over addiction. Find an activity that you enjoy and make it a regular part of your life. This could be going for a run, doing yoga, or pulling weights. Self-care and dealing with stress must be top priorities. People who are addicted often use unhealthy ways to deal with stress, pain, or bad feelings. So, if you want to beat addiction, you need to find healthier ways to deal with stress and take care of your mental health. Stoicism tells us to let go of things we can't change and focus on the things we can. This can be a very effective way to deal with worry and anxiety. Finding the things in your life that you can change, like your thoughts, feelings, and actions, and letting go of the things that you can't, will help you feel less stressed and better overall. Mindfulness meditation is another helpful way to deal with stress. Focusing on the present moment without judging it or getting sidetracked is what mindfulness is all about. This can help you become more self-aware, feel less stressed and anxious, and have better mental health in general. Stoicism suggests that practicing awareness can help you become wiser and more at peace with yourself. When you want to change your lifestyle, you often have to get away from things or people that make you want to use drugs. It might be hard to make this choice, but it's necessary for your healing. Stoicism tells us to put our own happiness first and make choices based on what's best for us, not what other people want us to do. Changing how you live is a very important part of getting over addiction. You can make changes to your lifestyle that will help your recovery and general health by eating well, working out regularly, putting yourself first, and staying away from things that make you feel bad. Step 6. Develop coping mechanisms. Strategies that help people deal with difficult or stressful events are called coping mechanisms. They are very important for beating addiction because they offer better alternatives to the behavior that is addicting. Stoicism offers a number of ways to deal with problems that can help with the healing process. With this method, you change how you think about a situation, which changes how you feel about it. Stoicism tells us that what bothers people is not what happens, but how they think about what happens. You can lessen the effects of triggers and urges by changing the way you think and feel about them. For instance, instead of seeing a craving as an unbearable drive, see it as a short-term pain that will go away. Focusing on the present moment without judging it is what mindfulness is all about. It's a strong way to deal with hunger and triggers. By focused on the present, you can keep your mind from going back to mistakes you made in the past or worries you have about the future. Stoicism supports mindfulness through exercises like View from Above, in which you imagine yourself as someone else to get a bigger picture of what's going on. Focusing on what's right in your life instead of what's wrong can help you be more grateful. Taking time to think about the progress you've made in your healing can also help. Stoicism says to show thanks every day, whether you write it down in a journal or just think about what you're thankful for. Stoicism teaches us to accept things as they are. It means recognizing and accepting truth as it is, instead of fighting it. Being able to accept triggers and urges can help you deal with them. Don't fight them. Instead, accept them as a part of getting better. Don't forget that it's not the urge itself that's bad, but how you handle it. Self-discipline means being able to handle your feelings and behaviors in order to reach long-term goals. It's an important way to deal with stress when trying to beat an addiction because it helps you delay pleasure in favor of future benefits. Self-discipline is very important in Stoicism because it is seen as a way to find peace and freedom inside. As was already said, getting help is an important part of getting better. Stoicism tells people to look to other people for knowledge and direction. Sharing your problems with other people can help you deal with them by giving you emotional support and useful tips. Mind, body, and spirit wellness are all taken care of by doing things on purpose as part of self-care. Oikiosis, which means living in harmony with nature and taking care of your physical and mental health, is an idea in Stoicism that shows how important it is to take care of yourself. Self-care can include things like working out regularly, eating well, getting enough sleep, and learning how to rest. Getting better at dealing is a very important part of beating addiction. Stoic teachings include cognitive reframing, awareness, gratitude, acceptance, self-discipline, social support, and self-care, all of which can help people deal with their triggers and cravings. You can beat addiction and live a better, happier life if you use these ways to deal with stress during your recovery. Step 7. Relapse is possible. Relapse is a normal part of healing, and it's helpful to think like a Stoic when you go through it. Stoicism tells us to accept the things we can't change and concentrate on the things we can. If you do relapse, it's very important not to let it stop your whole healing process. Instead, see it as a short-term setback and a chance to learn and grow. Amor fati, which means love of fate, is one of the most important ideas in Stoicism. This means that we have to accept and even look forward to the problems and difficulties that life brings us, even if we return. Relapse is a normal part of healing. If you accept that it will happen, you will feel less guilty and ashamed about it. Keep in mind that relapsing does not define you or your path to recovery. It was just one event and doesn't say anything about your worth or ability to beat addiction. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor and Stoic philosopher, once said, "What stops you from acting moves you toward action. What gets in the way turns into the way." Feelings of guilt, shame, and self-blame can come up after a relapse. Stoicism teaches us to be kind to ourselves. Don't forget that you are human and that people make mistakes. Say nice things to yourself and understand yourself instead of beating yourself up. Take the time to think about and learn from the return. What caused the relapse? How could you have done it better? What can you do to stop it from happening again? In order to get better, you can use a failure as a stepping stone by answering these questions. If you revert, don't be afraid to ask for help. Talking to someone you trust, like a friend, family member, or coworker, can help you get through this tough time. Stoicism stresses how important it is to live in the present. Focus on what you can do right now to keep going on your recovery path, instead of focusing on the past, the relapse, or the future possible relapses. You don't have to give up on your healing goals just because you relapsed. Promise to keep them, and remember why you started this trip in the first place. Recovery doesn't happen in a straight line. There are ups and downs, steps forward and backwards. On this trip, you can get through this journey with strength, self-awareness, and a growth attitude if you follow the teachings of Stoicism. He said, "Difficulties strengthen the mind, as labor does the body." Seneca was another famous Stoic philosopher. So don't see relapse as a failure. See it as a chance to make your mind and your healing stronger. You can beat addiction and live a happy life if you are patient, persistent, and think like a Stoic.